Hello and welcome to Digital Transformation and AI for Humans with your host, Amy. In this podcast, we delve into how technology intersects with leadership, innovation, and most importantly, the human spirit. Each episode features visionary leaders who understand that at the heart of success is the human touch, nurturing a winning mindset, fostering emotional intelligence, and building resilient teams. Today, we are exploring how to design agentic AI to rehumanize customer experience and sales, moving beyond automation toward meaningful transformation. My brilliant guest today is Dikshant Dave from San Francisco, California, a brilliant tech visionary and accomplished serial entrepreneur whose journey redefines what it means to build platforms with purpose. Dikshant is the founder and CEO of Zigment, the agentic AI marketing transformation platform empowering marketing teams worldwide to scale tenfold through intelligent automation and genuine human AI collaboration. His innovation extends far beyond marketing. He has also founded and led groundbreaking platforms in natural medicine and home and interior design, bridging technology with well-being, creativity, and sustainable living. This rare fusion of business, soul, and systems makes Dikshant not just a tech founder, but a multidimensional creator shaping the future of conscious innovation. I invite you to join us as we uncover his remarkable journey from building venture-backed startups supported by Axel and Qualcomm to pioneering the next era of agentic AI and explore how human intelligence and AI can truly co-create meaningful, scalable transformation. Welcome, Dikshant. I'm so happy to have you here in the studio today.
Thank you, Ami. Thank you for that glorious introduction. I think you were beyond modest, so thank you.
I know you're humble, but you've done all that and you should be proud. Let's start the conversation and transform not just our technologies, but our ways of thinking and leading. If you are interested in connecting or collaborating, you can find more information in the description. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful episodes. If you're a leader, business owner, or investor ready to adapt, thrive, and lead with clarity, purpose, and wisdom in the era of AI, I would love to invite you to learn more about AI Game Changers, a global elite club for visionary trailblazers and change makers shaping the future. You can apply at aigamechangers.club. Dikshant, to start with, I'm truly happy to have this conversation with you today. And I would love to start with hearing more about yourself, about your passions, about everything you're working on today.
Thank you, Ami. Yeah, pleasure is all mine to be here. I've been driven by creation, I think, and I'm glad you kind of, added the tag of creator, at the end of your introduction. Because at the end of it, whether it's, business or entrepreneurship, I think it is creation as a process that drives me the maximum. And that kind of explains like why I have chosen the path that I have so far, kind of dabbling into multiple things throughout my career. And it has been, a problem to solve or create a solution for a problem that I saw, in things around me or life, lifestyle or life, that existed around me. So most of things have kind of driven from the personal experience, to be honest. And, you know, so back in the day, started Cure Joy, which was a wellness platform. And the origin story of that is, as I moved from my 20s into 30s, suddenly the focus of, the attention was on personal health, so on and off my co-founder back then and we would discuss about these small little niggling issues that we were facing, like, oh, like I couldn't sleep well last night, or it could be like, oh, I've been having this backache, just not relenting, not going out. Uh, and those things were some things that don't kind of, push you to go to a doctor because, this is too small, but bothering enough to hurt your lifestyle. And we thought that, okay, if we are the ones who are facing it, maybe there are others in a similar space or like some similar kind of a problem area. Maybe we should do something. And that gave rise to kind of Pure Joy, which, was a wellness platform. And then fast forward from there, the journey has been home interiors, which was again emerged from my own kind of a drive to find or a better way to design my own house. Uh, or now Zigment, which basically emerges from the problems that I had in my previous organization, which was how do we reach these prospective customers or prospects who are interested clearly because they have filled this form, they've given us a lot of information, but they're not buying. And this problem stayed with me. And, back in 2023, when AI came about, ChatGPT was the experience, was like, wow, okay, this is now such an intellectual or intelligent kind of a piece of software that you can do so many things. The first thing that, or like, one of the top things that was there for me to kind of answer was that, okay, I had a problem where I had a lot of these people who were coming to me, asking, giving out information, but there was something stopping them from buying. And now with this particular technology, can we solve that? And solve that with empathy, meaningful interaction, and genuine kind of a helping approach. That was kind of a reason or a genesis of Zigment where we are right now.
Beautiful story, and what you're working on today is truly exciting. We often hear that AI is automating customer experience, but when we speak of agentic AI, we move beyond automation toward autonomy and co creation. How do you define agentic AI and what shifts when we stop designing for efficiency and start designing for meaning? You just mentioned empathy and meaning, so I would like to hear more about it.
Sure. I think agentic AI is very new as a term as well. So a lot of different flavors of definitions exist, but I think from where we are and what how I see, I think it's a piece of software or technology that is now driven or governed by an objective and not task. So to differentiate or kind of give like and explain this better, earlier pieces of software that we wrote, or we created were more task driven, where you knew that this was a task to be accomplished. I need accounting kind of a spreadsheet, and there was that particular thing that could do it. Uh, but what would the end objective be was still with you. With agentic AI, we are now moving into that autonomous zone where you are at a level of slightly higher level of abstraction where you're saying, I need this task accomplished or kind of a goal to be met. And with agentic AI, we are now capable of kind of, accomplishing that goal or meeting that goal. In that process, you could be doing multiple tasks or no tasks at all. And it's AI that is determining whether what it has to do. So you're not defining a path for that, or you're just defining like more of a goal. So that's kind of a simplest explanation of agentic AI that I would kind of give. From a particular point of moving from efficiency to meaning, I think it's a great point. And I guess with efficiency or a focus on efficiency at a cost of meaning, to me, kind of always felt like it's a penny wise, pound foolish, that you are for a very short term kind of incremental goals, you're missing out a larger picture. And we've experienced that in terms of where businesses have focused on their own efficiency at the cost of user experience, right? So customer support, like for say for simplest example, we know that the experience is far from kind of, ideal. That is because the systems that have been created to achieve that so far have been for gaining efficiency, that okay, like I need to resolve this ticket in like shortest amount of time because time is money and we need to reduce that time. What happens in that case is that you're keeping the goal, which was to resolve somebody's query or a problem, which should have been the primary thing, becomes secondary. And suddenly you are now shifting the pose that, oh, no, we need to be efficient. No, we need to kind of reduce the time of this, customer support executive because we need to kind of, it needs to be that way. Thankfully, with AI, with agentic AI, now we are going back to saying that, okay, the goal still remains that resolve this user's query or a problem and do whatever it takes to kind of, that cannot be compromised. So I'm sure we're going to kind of now drive towards the future, which kind of, takes the end goal or the larger picture, more seriously than incremental efficiencies.
This is very interesting, and I like your approach. Dikshant, most customer experience systems were built to reduce friction, exactly as you mentioned, not to deepen connection. How can we re-architect the customer journey so artificial intelligence amplifies empathy, presence, and trust rather than just convenience and efficiency?
Yeah, I think, again, extending my, previous answer, I think we are, when we start kind of, keeping that meaning or the end goal, which is the larger goal, which would have been like, in case of customer support, it is like supporting the customer. The name, the tag itself is like, you got to support a customer. And that's of paramount importance. Everything else should be secondary. With agentic AI now, when we kind of keep that as a goal, that customer support is the goal, and making sure that we are resolving customers' query in a most efficient way for customer, not necessarily for the business. That starts kind of shifting our own perspective in terms of how we are handling and building these processes and systems. So when we start kind of saying that, okay, this customer query needs to be addressed, we are now going to kind of say that, uh, how do we make the person feel that he's heard, he or she is heard, and thereby sowing some seeds of empathy that we are here to first of all listen to you, and then kind of provide a best possible way to resolve that. And that in a way kind of leads us to the path of empathy. Of course, this is, I won't say it's an absolute empathy, but at least it's leading to that path of where somebody is feeling or the user feels that, okay, like, this is meaningful. They are respecting my concern and keeping that at the top of the concerns that we should have.
I see many AI driven solutions today and agentic solutions which are truly mostly focused on performance, and empathy is just falling out of that equation. So I'm really happy to have this conversation with you because your solution is going to change so many businesses and experiences for specific customers. So, of course, it is important to highlight how others can also learn from your experiences and see how those solutions can be better aligned with our human core nature. In sales, automation often strips away the human spark that builds loyalty. How can agentic AI restore authenticity and human centricity in how brands communicate and sell?
Yeah, this has been time since we have a civilized world. There have been businesses, there have been brands, and then there are consumers. I think best brands are the ones who have built like a very strong loyalty. And those have come emerged from certain things that they have done very well, which is basically most in most cases it is keeping the user or a customer at the center of everything. And alluding to the previous points as well, that you start building loyalty when you have a great way of addressing your prospects or customers' concerns and questions, and finding out a genuine way of helping them in that journey. So even if you kind of think about a customer today who's in the market of like, or who's thinking of buying something, uh, just imagine, and we put ourselves in that shoes, like we know that there are so many choices, right? There are hundreds of choices for everything that we think about. And it's cognitively heavy, right? Every decision making is like, okay, should we be buying this or A versus B? And like there is so much of research happens. It's a pretty heavy decision, like, so most of the larger ticket items that you would buy. So first is that the brands need to empathize with that fact that, okay, as much as, brands are under pressure to kind of serve, sell more, the customers are also under a lot of pressure of kind of, figuring out the right choice, best choice. And what we've seen is the best brands or the businesses are the ones who have genuinely helped the prospect or the user in that journey of buying. That may mean that uh, the best product may not be your product at all, but you just kind of genuinely help that customer in that process of knowledge, gathering, kind of, information gathering, making a wise choice, and then leave it out to them to kind of make that the final choice. Could be your product, possibly, but it could be, it may be some other product, right? And I think that consistently we have seen that brands who done well, they have done these things much better, but they are hard. So you take example of American Express or like some of the bigger brands. They've done these hard things, and other companies are not been able to replicate this because this is hard. If it was very simple, everybody would be doing it, but these are hard things. With agentic AI now, we have now that tool and ability to actually get these brands start adopting or start implementing these aspects of customer engagement and helping customers in a more efficient way. We are going to see that there's the relationship between the customer and brands is going to get much better because now simply you can kind of do all of that. Another example of the brand and customer engagement, part is that uh, for any brand today, customers engage with them through multiple channels, right? They could kind of, come to you from on a website. They could engage with your Instagram post. They could call up your, phone lines directly or send you a WhatsApp or some other different message in email. How do you create an environment of like one brand, one voice? And engage that first of all that every channel kind of resonates the same brand voice, and then also have systems in place where you recognize it's the same user, that the same user had sent you like two mails, and then that person, she's calling you again on a phone line. These are the elements that start building a great user experience and thereby started brand love, which will eventually most likely will turn into a brand loyalty. So I think we are kind of now much closer to that reality en masse than we ever were, is how I see today's scenario.
I like your philosophy behind running business because those priorities, they are actually so human centric, and typically, even if it might sound a little bit counterproductive for those who are just purely focused on conversion rate and all those hard KPIs, but for businesses which are really truly focused on their customers and that experience they can offer, the loyalty is much higher. And as long as loyalty is there in place, the long term development of their brand and growth of their business is much safer, and they get much more successful than their competitors.
I agree. Yeah. And I think it's like, when I've spoken with this with some other friends from the industry, they've tried kind of saying that, okay, like this is a righteous path, may not necessarily be the right path for business. And my answer is that business or a brand building or being in business is like a marathon. And, it's not a sprint. It's not a 100-meter sprint that you somehow win the race. You have to kind of think of like, okay, I'm going to have run like 10 miles and think about that, and when you have to think over 10 miles, you're going to pace yourself in the right way. And I think that although this path kind of supposedly feels like righteous and stuff, but I think it's a more, even business wise, it's a smarter way to kind of go about it, because if there is no brand loyalty, if users don't think you care for them, they don't love you, I don't think you can build a business eventually out of it.
That's so true. And as you rightfully highlighted, I see many businesses which are focusing on tactics more than strategy, just because in this AI driven era, it's also much easier to lead in shorter term perspectives and push for something what is easier to turn into clear results. And the areas which somehow softer, they are not really front and center, because it's difficult for those who are in charge for P&L to present those in terms of short-term results, because that takes time, that takes effort, that takes a lot of alignment within the company. And sometimes it might not show up on the quarterly basis, but still it is important. In a way, technology reflects our intentions, and that design is so important. What human qualities must we encode into the next generation of AI agents if we want them to elevate and not erode our capacity to connect?
Hmm. A very interesting question. I think the primary thing that we now have is that ability to listen. I think as we have gone into the past, 25 years of like development and stuff, the ability to listen as human beings is kind of going down. We kind of, the attention span is going down. And the net result is that you rarely find some people who are like actively listening to you and like, meaningfully engaging that conversation. Uh, with AI now, as a business, at least one quality that we now can bring in is that you can now listen to your users, your customers, and bring that first quality where you listen and you make them feel heard that, okay, we are here, we are listening to you, whatever you have to say. Nothing is left, unheard. If you think about it, like, so many examples of, even personal experiences you might be able to relate is that you call up a somebody that something that you've been able wanting to buy, you fill a form or like, for a services or a product, and somebody reaches out to you and they do not have a context. They ask you some questions again. You might have kind of provided that information in an email and stuff, and then you feel that you having to repeat that information again. Somehow you feel that, okay, like, but I had already mentioned this to other person in your company, or I had left a note, but that communication doesn't happen. With agentic AI, we can now actively create systems which are listening. First of all, listening at all the touch points that your, businesses or users might reach out to you. I think that's the step number one. And then from when you listen, you can create meaningful conversations from there on, where somebody knows that, okay, you've been listening. So I'm serious about it, like, and then I'm going to engage. And to this point, at least when AI came about, there was this skepticism that, oh, nobody wants to talk to an AI, like, people are not just going to reject, stuff. And rightly so, they were like, it's all new, that was happening around. But when you kind of take or consider, like in so many businesses and areas where even interactions with humans are so like not so great, like the quality of conversation, or where you feel that oh, that person is not listening, or person is not able to kind of understand clearly what you are saying, or not attempting to understand, we can now solve a lot of those problems with the the technology we have. And I think that is only getting better, from there on. So our, again, as product creator, our focus has been on this very fundamental aspects of human interactions, and we think that it's ultimately the conversation, the engagement, quality of engagement that drives business. Example of that is that you go to a restaurant and the server, the waiter there is so good, and you go back home with that memory that, oh, that experience was such a great experience, and you feel like I want to go there again. I will go again and stuff. And so ultimately, it is not the place, it's not the kind of stuff that was there, the brand name. It is that experience that you had as a human being. And so we feel in conversations, in this listening, in actively engaging with customers, if we can generate these experiences, you will see more attachment, more love from customers eventually. So I think that's what, like, just focus on basics and rest will fall in place of it.
Definitely. I love how you describe it, and that comparison is brilliant because exactly we have those memories, we have those connections, human to human, heart to heart, and that's why we are willing to get back to certain places, to certain brands, and invest into our co-creation. And actually we don't invest into those businesses which don't care about our experiences and about ourselves. Sometimes you just feel neglected and ignored, and then of course you're not going to take your money back into that business. But I'm wondering as well, how do you see it from the perspective of humans? Because there are so many conversations and so much fear around replacing humans with those agentic solutions. So, how do you see that part when you mention that AI solutions can actually create that empathetic experience and generate the communication on the level which humans not always can stand for. So, how can we find that safe balance and move forward into the future in a way where we don't want or don't plan to replace humans with technologies?
Yeah, I think wow, this is a loaded question, and then very hotly debated and then discussed everywhere. And then we think about it actively, of course, working with our customers. This is the part that's always in the forefront of how this will pan out. Uh, One honest answer is that, yeah, I mean, we are in very early stage of this evolution. I would say infancy. This is going to pan out in some form or the other. But the future, the version of future that we see is that there's going to be coexistence for sure. If you again go back to the previous example of the even with other human kind of interactions where there is a experience is not of great quality, and when you kind of feel that the other person is not interested in most cases, or like not doing their bit to engage actively. If you think about it, like what would be the reason? Like, and the reason would be that okay, like person is just not interested in whatever that person is asked to do, right? So your first step, we kind of go back to that. Okay, so whatever employment we had created in a lot of these areas, we are putting people, but it's very unnatural for most of them to kind of be interested, right? To answer angry queries or customer problems, taking your 10th call of the day, it's already 8 o'clock and you having to kind of address an angry customer. You can't expect a level of motivation like when you start in the morning. So clearly, there is a problem with that overall aspect of what kind of work that has been so far. With AI coming in, and AI is going to kind of replace some of that part of work, or kind of coexist in some cases, replace in some cases. But in all, I feel that it is going to complement the businesses or the processes that we create are going to be created in a way that humans and AI coexist and complement each other in that sense. In short term, we might see some, I would say, disruptions or chaotic environment, but I think we will arrive at equilibrium state sometime soon where we are going to see that effect or kind of emphasis from rather than replacing or displacing human employment, it will be kind of creating way more. In simpler terms, that with this technology, we just don't have to think that, okay, I was doing this work with my 10 employees and now I can do the same thing with 2 people. I think we can now think that, okay, 10 people were able to do a certain amount of work, but now those same 10 people actually can kind of do like 10x more. And thankfully, and then this is very heartening because to see that every customer that we worked with, they have this in mind. Like, they are thinking about like how to just do way more than what we were doing, because it would be kind of fairly myopic to just think that, okay, just reduce cost. I think, now that you have such a large technology, large invention, let's go all out. Let's do way more than what we were doing because now it's possible. So we are going to see that there might be some disruptions in short term, but we will see that we are way large, like in productivity, in efficiency, in just doing a lot of stuff. We are 10x, 100x, or even 1000x more, and thereby in that process creating way more employment overall. Different domains, different things. To be honest, for example, like back in the day in 1940s or 50s, there were people just on the calculator calculating, things. There were like, thousands of people employed by financial institutions to just do calculation because that was a job. And uh, that went away eventually. But we know that we are far better, off than we were in 1930s with way more employment, way more larger GDP, global GDP than we were earlier. I think AI is going to bring us a similar, results eventually. So I'm pretty hopeful and quite bullish about the future that we live in. And this is me talking as a human, purely not an owner of a company, which is building AI agents.
Actually, it gives me hope when a person who is standing behind an AI agentic solutions company has this type of mindset and priorities. And when you mentioned that most part of your clients are also keeping human centricity in mind, it is important because that's also being a role model in this completely new way of running business and developing technologies, where it's obviously difficult to come to the optimum from the first try, but at the same time, it is crucial to keep in mind what really matters, and that's actually the human factor, the human centricity. And then from there already develop those solutions which can create better options for business growth, but at the same time, so many benefits for those humans who are already a part of the business. So and that is really something many businesses should listen to and see as a great example of how to build the future through technologies in a sustainable way. Dikshant, true personalization is not about data points, but understanding the person behind them, as you just shared with us. And of course, that's the core of any successful business. But how do you see AI evolving from recommendation engines to proactive relationship builders, besides being a part of those chatbots, which can replace a part of the communication between the brand and the customer side?
I think the question leads to one of the things that we talk very strongly internally as a company, which is context. We have a technology called context graph, which basically, where we are trying to solve in non-technical terms, we are trying to kind of feel that how do we track and build a context kind of a journey of the user throughout the time that the person is kind of within the organization. Now, for a small organization, this is like a simpler project. If you have a small shop, let's say, you know the customers very well. You can tell them good morning. You can ask them what happened there, school admission, etc. But as this scale increases, you lose this personal part. You lose this kind of a personal connect because it's very hard to retain context across, let's say, millions of users that you might have as a business. How do you do it? And traditionally, it's some kind of a almost impossible solution. It's just not possible to build a system which can remember everything about every user, then build a personal context. Although from user's point of view or the customer's point of view, they are very important. They want to feel important and they want to get a personal attention from the company. With AI now, at least on the how AI is evolving, we now have ability to actually retain that context and give a very personalized, in fact, very not personalized. I would not say personalized. Personalized is a very technical term. I would say very personal kind of an attention and approach to the users, where as a business or that at AI layer, you have all the information about that particular user right from the day one, which would have been like 10 years ago, and you know everything. And with this super intelligence that you have at your disposal, now you can talk about that context. You can talk about what they did last year or what are the support query that they had put out, like, 3 months ago. And you can ask them, hey, like, I hope that's kind of, that there's no further issue that happened, after that. And like, if there is anything, let us know. And by the way, here is a coupon code, that we want to share with you. Just building this meaningful interaction through retention, which is basically building a large kind of a memory around that particular user. I think it's going to be like a very defining way how businesses approach that engagement with every customer. And from our point of view, I think we feel that's important. And purely, even if we keep the business aside, just as a user, I feel that that problem needs to solve. As a consumer, I feel that I wish there was a way that, business or the institution or organization that I'm engaging with knows about me better. So before they send me a kind of another marketing mail, I wish they address the query that I had, or at least refer to that query that I had posted, and then build a context rather than kind of blindly sending me stuff. So just as a consumer, we want to solve that with the AI. That's a possibility. So we are going in that direction. A lot of companies like us are kind of solving these human problems with AI, and something that we did not have before. So it's evolving, and I think this evolution, part of evolution, is very exciting.
And this is truly exciting. And I would love to dive a little bit deeper into this part around context. As AI systems begin to act, decide, and even feel in context, how do we preserve ethical integrity and ensure alignment with human values?
At a tech, at a systems level, we can retain the memory. We can build everything around that customer journey within the business. So, the kind of queries they put, kind of conversations, kind of, they had during conversations, what was the mood switch that they had? Did we sense urgency? Did we sense frustration? Did we sense anger? And all those kind of recorded into the system. So that's one part of complex graph. Now, what we do with that is we can do a lot of good things, and we can do right things. But I think on the ethical front, we will see a lot of companies taking a very different path, altogether. And I'm not necessarily in a good or a bad way or a right or wrong way. There could be a lot of nuances there. There is this classical problem in psychology, which is, you might have heard that you are driving a car and there is a woman with her children, and you have two choices whether you're going to kind of save them, putting your life at a risk, or you save yourself and kind of put their life at risk. And there's no right or wrong answer. And there have been hotly debating things around this. With AI, we are going to have a lot of these ethical questions that will come up, and different companies will take a different stand. But I think we've kind of seen, we have had some history now, in civilized world, of we know that, okay, what are those absolute wrongs? So hopefully we will not see those. Also from government side and system side, there are these almost quasi-ethical boundary regulations that are coming in, that what you can do. One example is that, okay, disclose that it's an AI, and things like those. But I think we are going to be in that space. And I don't have a very clear answer around it, because I myself kind of wonder about, like, okay, we have choices in every implementation. We could build AI because ultimately it's us who are designing these systems, and we can cross that line if we wish to, right? And then so how are we going to kind of, hold the right, probably a stand where we are doing the right thing all the time? We will have to see how things kind of evolve from there. But these are valid questions, and I think a lot of companies kind of they are discussing it. Even the larger organizations are starting to kind of put their thoughts around it. But yeah, I think from ethical point of view, at least the customers we work with, there's a very clear line. Most of them tread a very fair line that, okay, let's not try and optimize or build like a super efficient system. Let's just do what is also right in a lot of senses. So that gives me a lot of hope and positive outlook to the future, that collectively as humans and people who are, in some form or the other shaping this future, we'll take the right stand, we'll do the right thing. So hopefully, I'm sorry, like it was a long-winded and convoluted answer to your, rather simple question, but it's loaded.
The question was actually very complicated because, as you mentioned, there are many dilemmas out there. And of course, it's not obvious. And when you step out from the space of uniquely human decisions into a space where agentic solutions are also having certain level of independence, and you are designing those systems, so it's up to you to choose what to include or exclude. It is, of course, a very difficult question, not only technically and even less so technically, but much more difficult from the perspective of human centricity and those core values we would like to keep in place. So I'm happy to hear that not only yourself as a business person and developer of these type of solutions, but also your customers are prioritizing these discussions and look not only into here and now and not only into the profits, but also into more deep philosophical questions and how to solve them in a human and promising way for whole the humanity as such.
That's right.
If we rehumanize customer experience and sales through agentic AI, what will the future roles of human employees look like? We already touched upon this topic, but I would like to hear more from you. Will they become orchestrators of intelligence, experience designers, or something entirely new? And how many people will lose their job before we truly redefine what those roles mean? How do you perceive it and what do you see around you through those who are developing those similar solutions and through those who really need those solutions for their businesses?
Again, heavy question. Again, not right or wrong answer. And this is because it's a more of a prediction for the future. I think from where we are seeing, I initially when we started, we did not have a grasp of how big this technological evolution is. Like it felt like a software tool and stuff. And so the initial this thing was okay, this is something that another powerful tool that will now come to our disposal as and we are going to use it the way we have done with other softwares. But I think the single most aspect of autonomy where you can just define a goal and you can design agentic systems which will figure out the best way or the most possible good way or right way to kind of achieve those goals, make them autonomous, and hence thereby almost leveling up with the human counterparts, right? Because our unique ability as humans was that you could give them a vague criteria and say, hey, I need to get this done. Email needs to go out today. That was good enough. And, your trusted employee would be able to do it. And they would use softwares, but trust would be on the person to do it. We now have systems can autonomously handle, not all tasks, but like, a lot of the similar tasks or a lot of the tasks in that area where we initially felt that only humans can do it. So we are going to see a stiff competition there where we will see AI working hand in hand or kind of in parallel with their human employees. In many cases, with our customers also, the way we are seeing this evolving is that, okay, we have these cohort of potential customers, and we think that through a lot of these machine learning and stuff, we've kind of figured out that the set of 20 customers are like, or 20% of those customers are real high value. They need kind of strong attention. So we will deploy our humans, all effort of the human employees on those because we cannot afford or we need like our best effort there. For the rest of them, we will kind of deploy AI. It's something that we would not have done anything at all, or we might have sent them a mail or some like use an inferior way to kind of communicate. But now we'll have AI kind of, engage with them. So I feel that we are already starting to see that coexistence where let AI handle some of the tasks and let humans handle some of the tasks. The trust still is on humans more that like, okay, this I would not entrust on, like AI. I would rather have my, trusted colleague or kind of a subordinate handle those tasks. So that's happening. So I kind of feel the future looks kind of an enlarged version of this, where we are going to see that lot of places where humans will have assistance from the AI co-pilots and AI tools. They will have these agentic systems which are sitting in parallel and executing a lot of these tasks. But because now we are capable of handling so much more, that overall volume of tasks are going to kind of increase. So as I was kind of citing earlier, that most companies are feeling that customers are seeing that we could do like X amount of work with these 100 employees, and now with the same 100 employees, now we can actually expect that let's get 100x more or like 10x more, and thereby now I can tell my marketing team press the accelerator on your campaigns because I'm not going to say no now to kind of more leads that you generate, because there were these constraints in the system. Now those constraints are taken off, so everybody has like a longer leash in that sense. We are going to see this coexistence. We are going to see a world evolve with like humans, AI agents, and agentic assistants all being part of the workflows, where most businesses where, ultimately users want a human to kind of talk to or kind of look at the face, which happens mostly in kind of buying decisions, where if you're buying a house and you could have kind of interacted with agent who provided information, but it's unlikely that you will shake hands with AI and say, okay, here is my check, and like, like deal is done. I think you want to shake hands with that person in the end. And so that kind of remains with, the humans largely. Again, in short term, we are going to see displacement or kind of a replacement, that movement of one kind of work to another kind of work. So we might see some disruption, some kind of time of unease or some time, but we will quickly evolve to kind of, be there where we have to be. So net, I feel that it's a positive move and positive evolution, but we have to be ready for some minor kind of hiccups, on the way.
I feel that it depends a lot on the leaders and on how we are running this evolution, because I see also businesses which are reasoning in a way that humans are going to be considered as a support to those AI solutions, just to review everything and make sure that the governance is in place. But still, not everybody is seeing the value of keeping humans front and center and AI solutions as support for humans. So sometimes I just see that this priority must turn upside down, and then it will be difficult for humans to find their proper place in the process and in businesses, because they will be seen more like something in addition to those technologies which are running business, instead of technologies being something supporting humans in running business. Do you see this trend, or is it only one way you see this situation?
No, I think this is, I guess we are at infancy of a lot of this development and evolution. Everybody's grappling, like right from the leaders to employees, juniors, everybody's trying to figure out like how to make sense of this. People are more comfortable with human processes and humans in the loop. And our personal example of, where we have gone to the customer and like, okay, this is what we can do, and large hindrance has been that, oh, but I've been working with this team and it may not possible for me to kind of just disrupt this way of working so immediately. And thereby goes into like, okay, let's take a look at it again in 3 months, And while this may feel like for us, like, okay, like, oh, the sales kind of, we lost a sale or we kind of, this got delayed on the selling part. But we also feel that, okay, people are thinking about it. People are thinking, what's right for themselves and also for their friends and colleagues and kind of their teams, which is heartening to see. And which is the kind of point you allude that is there a one direction or the other? I think there is more of the protective part that exists today. And I think net, that's a better way to kind of, go and then kind of, let this, even if that evolution takes slightly longer time, it is better and kind of gives everybody else ramp up and be ready. So, so yeah, we are seeing that better part of that evolutionary trend, at least that we are working with.
Sounds reassuring and very positive. That's great. What is one thing we all need to unlearn about technology, humanity, or the way we do business today to adapt and thrive tomorrow?
There's one thing I would say, so far we've been like the way we have utilized or looked at technology is getting answers, right? Whether it was Google, whether it was some systems, it was basically getting answers for the questions that we had or we could possibly kind of think of. I would not say unlearning, but I think that slightly like a larger learning curve is happening around. You have now a tool that can actually help you with questions. And we're seeing like across a lot of board that, okay, like I have this meeting coming up. What should be the 3 questions that I should ask? I saw my daughter the other day. She was, she had this one-on-one with her teacher. And I saw her like she was asking the ChatGPT that, okay, what are those questions that I should ask my teacher? Like this is my, history and stuff. And so that learning for younger kids might happen naturally because they will be AI native. But for a lot of us on the other side would be where start thinking of how to use this technology to kind of even surface questions that otherwise we were not even asking or like, not just relying for answers, but even for questions. Uh, and I feel that it's not as straightforward. It doesn't come to us naturally. And even to me, when I kind of look at it, like I've been dealing with this question, why didn't I ask this? Like why didn't I take help? Because it just didn't come naturally. Because I am still thinking that I need to have a very clear question to be able to kind of get an answer. So I think that's one part of like, this evolutionary thing that we are going to see some ramping up and then learning as we go forward.
Aren't you afraid that it's going to impact our ability to think and overall the critical thinking skill? Because I see that many reports are highlighting that negative impact on our ability to use our best soft skills when we are in touch with artificial intelligence and let it basically think for us.
Valid question. Even I had this stand, like, where I did not let my daughter interact or use, ChatGPT for a long time. But I think what I'm seeing is that the thinking of like, okay, this question coming that, okay, what should I be asking my teacher? That part that coming to you is still yours, still kind of, uniquely yours, and the ability to think. So I think it's not like we're going to stop thinking completely, but it will allow us to kind of go at a higher level of abstraction, higher, more meta, more larger questions that you can kind of now start thinking about versus being kind of, thinking on those specific questions. Again, I'm not advocating that, yeah, we replace even at a childhood level how to kind of, displace, the kids' learning abilities. We still want them to be very curious, asking the simpler questions, and then finding those answers. But I think we are going to see a ramp where we will, as a humans, we will evolve into, much larger levels of abstraction in terms of thinking. One analogy that I can give from my personal experience, again, as a student, when I studied back then, it was, almost like assembly level coding. Like I did software engineering, and there were like this machine level kind of where we had to program at 0 and 1 level of coding. And as this new language came about, like which was Java, and we said, oh, okay, like this is going to kill all the thinking that went into like, where we used to think about like, okay, it's 0 and 1. But in a couple of years, a few years, we kind of realized that, oh, it's allowing us to now think way larger, way much more broader and pick up larger problems that would have been very difficult to kind of, take up at that level of questioning or reasoning. So, and I think that from there, Java to kind of newer development tools that have come in, they've just brought out larger questions from us.
I actually see it in a very positive way as well because I see how AI and our interaction with those chatbots, among other solutions, can help us dig in deeper and get in a broader perspective and connecting the dots we didn't know how to connect before, or even potentially discover the dots we didn't know exist before. So I see it as a very powerful tool which can help us tapping into our inner power and understanding the world around us much faster and in a more powerful way. But it all depends on our mindset and on our goals behind using those solutions as well, on our ambitions, and a lot on our human values. That's why we're having these important conversations to understand how we can support each other and create a better world all together. I love our today's discussion, and to wrap up, if you could give one piece of advice to leaders who want to move from automation to meaningful transformation, which you are standing for, what would it be?
We don't need to think of in terms of automation. I think automation will happen. Uh, I feel that as a leader or kind of business leader or whatever unit you're driving, key part is that keep uh, you know keep that ultimate goal or the larger goal in central perspective, and then design systems or the thought processes around it. We no longer have to think in terms of these smaller efficiency gains, etc. Those were the constructs of the previous era of software technology that we had. We had to think in those terms because we just did not have a better way. But now when we have a better way, we can actually shed our, those ways of operating and think larger, keep your customers, keep your users at a top priority, and then build systems around it. So I think key part that you mentioned, meaning, just have that meaning in bold and center that, okay, this is what you're going to kind of drive and everything else will fall in place. Technology is great and will allow you to do that.
Thank you so much. I love this conclusion, and I'm so grateful that you shared with us your wisdom, your experience, and your insights. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Dikshant.
I loved our conversation too, Emmy. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you for joining us on Digital Transformation and AI for Humans. I'm Amy, and it was enriching to share this time with you. Remember, the core of any transformation lies in our human nature, how we think, feel, and connect with others. It is about enhancing our emotional intelligence, embracing a winning mindset, and leading with empathy and insight. Subscribe and stay tuned for more episodes where we uncover the latest trends in digital business and explore the human side of technology and leadership. If this conversation resonated with you and you are a visionary leader, business owner, or investor ready to shape what's next, consider joining the AI Game Changers Club. You will find more information in the description. Until next time, keep nurturing your mind, fostering your connections, and leading with heart.